Hey y'all, it's Kim. It's Tuesday, and I'm sure you might have seen this with President Trump and is it Bukele? I think that's how you say the guy's name, from El Salvador. Try to get it. Anyway, they're in the office just talking about yes, these people that have been mistakenly deported, but it's like, well, they came here illegally and didn't do all the right steps. So if they get swept up in it, unfortunately, it might happen. But anyway, I don't know how you can mistakenly deport somebody, but you'll hear his explanation of why they're not going to take the person back. Because I mean, it's pretty good answer. He's like, I'm not going to smuggle somebody that's an actual citizen of El Salvador back into the United States. But anyway, I'll let him explain it or let them go through this. But the news media is asking them questions. We'll probably look at Sky News Australia too, because they show where pretty much Trump uh, owned Kaitlan Collins again. But anyway, let's listen to these two discuss this man that was accidentally deported. Okay.
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor.
President, do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country.
Well,
right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
anything
Court's
to get
asking
him back?
to.
Is that
What was the ruling in the Supreme Court? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked.
¿Se lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele,
Presidente
what is
Bukele?
can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I guess, I mean, most of us suggested that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right?
It's always
How,
CNN.
how can I smuggle, how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States? Well, of course, I'm not gonna do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world to the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? That's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal,
Yeah,
released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick, these are
Wow.
sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way. That's Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function in the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago, and they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals?
Yeah,
in our
seriously.
country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over, and that's why nobody watches
You're
you
beating a
anymore.
dead
And you have
horse.
no credibility. Please, go ahead.
President Trump, thank you very much. How
Dang. Okay, let's look at some of the comments. I don't know much about C-SPAN, but they only have 403 comments, 9,700 views. This question, do you plan to ask President Bukele, I think that's how you say it, to help return the man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador, President Bukele? Of course I'm not going to. The question is preposterous. It's his citizen. I mean, anyway, let's see. What are the comments? They can't return him because he's dead. There's no proof of life. If they had proof of life, they'd show it and still keep him detained. Has there ever been so many clown bobbleheads in the same room at one time? Let's see what this reply is. Yeah, it's amazing that the president lets them in the room to ask him such silly questions. He won't allow anyone back, so nobody knows what really is going on there. This guy reminds me of Duterte. I don't know, from the Philippines. Why are the press not asking more important questions that this Salvador president is not wearing a tie to the White House? These people are an embarrassment. They're pretending to play government. Worst part is the many who bought into it. When are these reporters going to grow a backbone and clap back when that dingus degrades them? Interesting how this president's dictator's clothes was not pressing issue. All Bondi said about immigration courts might be true, but out of context, the courts may have found that he had been forced before age 16 to join the gang in El Salvador, but escaped them in the country and came here for asylum. The last statement of that court was 6 years ago. If a more recent court action was to give him permission to live here legally before all this started, then he was wrongly deported. The president of El Salvador looks like a drug dealer villain from a Lethal Weapon movie. What the hell? Stephen Miller is involved in speaking, so that is hateful wrong. What is involved in speaking? So this is hateful. I don't know what that means. I don't understand. Talk to CNN like you're talking to a 2-year-old. Well, yeah. R.I.P. habeas corpus. His lawyer should be there because they are lying. Justice from God is coming. Okay, seriously ugly charade, but the contempt for anyone who's not them, that is 100% real. Thanks for the unflinching look, C-SPAN. He wasn't mistakenly deported. Where's the proof? Release him in El Salvador. What a stupid comment. This is dangerously close to contempt of court and WTF. Deport the stupid media too. The bosses have spoken. Okay, so let's look at just some of this on. I mean, it's basically the same clip, but it says Trump and Bukele torched the fake news media about the border. What you're doing with the border is remarkable. Why are those numbers not in the media? Well, they get out, but the fake news, CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers because I think they hate our country, actually. But it is a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Here, let me play this. This is MSDNC, so let's see here.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Wow.
But it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
It's a crazy turnaround.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Anything that's good, though, they don't want to hear about it. We put it out there. So this is CNN. Let's see what they
What
have
they've
to
done
say.
to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually. But it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
It's a crazy turnaround.
what
Wow.
they've done.
Yeah. Let's see. President Trump absolutely torches the media during this meeting with President Bukele this morning. I think he was having fun. This is from Fox.
Do you have any questions, please? So let's not start with
Let's not start with CNN.
Yeah, please. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CBS.
President Bukele to help return.
So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal,
Yeah, I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick, these are sick people.
We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Go. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? What?
They can't do that because of the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. Anything that Trump tries to do, the news media and the leftists have to fight against it tooth and nail. I mean, they just cannot do anything to like basically support the president or give him good ratings or anything. Let's see what he's saying. I wanted to find the full thing. Hold on.
We know that.
And I couldn't find it. Okay, so it says President Bukele sends a message to Trump. Now it's your turn to liberate 350 million people. Let's see what he's got to say.
And we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we should. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world. That was the journalist comment, right? Murder capital of the world into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And if sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, it's very good.
Well, and if we actually had a justice system that was prosecuting laws and not glorifying people like that Luigi dude, like I showed you yesterday, then, I mean, if there was, if people actually saw that there were consequences, they probably wouldn't be doing this stuff. But of course, everything gets blown up on social media and glorified and just made to look better than it is. But anyway, I guess that's just people just not caring that you gotta have some kind of consequences for actions. Otherwise, it's just gonna be like anarchy. But whatever. Let's see. Is this an hour and a half? I mean, I don't want to watch this, but anyway. So basically, you see this Oval Office fireworks. Trump alongside El Salvador's president Nayib, I guess. Nayib Bukele took on CNN over deportation and MS-13. Trump. That's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Bukele doubled down on security. Major moment in U.S. El Salvador relations. Trump, Bukele, CNN, Oval Office. Says it's going to be legendary. President Trump and President Bukele, two icons in their own right. The energy and alliance here, absolutely next level. And then this is his Truth Social post. Looking forward to seeing President Bukele of El Salvador. On Monday, our nations are working closely together to eradicate terrorist organizations and build a future of prosperity. President Bukele has graciously accepted into his nation's custody some of the most violent alien enemies of the world, and in particular the United States. These barbarians are now in the sole custody of El Salvador, a proud and sovereign nation, and their future is up to President B and his government. They will never threaten or menace our citizens again. Yeah, I mean, if people say that there's consequences for actions, they'll stop trying to come here and do this kind of stuff. But anyway, Trump and El Salvador, President Bukele torched CNN. Kaitlan Collins to her face. Yeah. Well, she just kept asking the same stupid questions. He was like, no, we're not bringing the guy back. Stop asking. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I tried to find the entire clip because I was curious about it, but I couldn't find it. But anyway, hopefully y'all enjoyed him roasting these people because they just don't stop. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to try to get chapter or page 13 put up, but we'll see how this goes. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.